My name is George Daniel. I'm a scientific angler ambassador, and the fact is, we're all gear junkies. But what happens when you just want to simplify the gear, reduce the amount of tools that you carry with you on the water, and hopefully just enjoy the experience maybe a little bit more? What you see here is my approach to trout fishing within the last 1 to 2 years. First is the rod. If I was to pick one length and line weight for fly fishing for trout, for what I do, a 10-foot 4-weight. I can still Euro nymph lightweight rigs with this. Have to work a little bit harder, but I can easily make it work. I can do indicator rigs. I can throw basically any dry fly system I want with a 4-weight. I can even fish small to medium sized streamers. So for me, 10-foot 4-weight would be my preferred rod. As for reels, full frame reel compared to a non-full frame reel, if you're fishing ultra thin lines like a Euro line or an all mono system, it's very easy for that thin part of that mono or the line to get caught or stuck behind this part of the reel. What's nice about these full frame reels, they're called Euro reels, but I use them basically for all my trout systems, is that the cage is enclosed 360 degrees, so thin fly line or monofilament can never slip through the cracks. As for fly lines, double taper for me pretty much all the time. One, economics, two fly lines the price of one. When one side gets chewed up, reverse it, second fly line. Also, I love roll casting, do a lot of roll casting back home, and most of the places I go, double tapers are excellent when it comes to the ability to roll cast. Also, I'm not casting usually beyond 30-35 feet for most of my trout fishing. Plus, I'm not dealing with really strong winds. So the taper and the double taper is all I need to make those 30-35 foot casts with ease, without effort, and it's perfect presentation. Leaders, personal preference. I like a longer leader. The further the fly is from the fly line, from a nymphing and dry fly standpoint, typically I feel the better the presentation is going to be. I like using longer leaders, so off my 4X or off my double taper 4-weight, I'm going to add a 14-foot 4X leader. You can use a loop-to-loop, or you can use a blood knot or like a splice knot and attach that directly to your fly line. I'm going to run my hand down to the end of the 4X leader. This is a 4X leader. And then using my fingertips as a micrometer, I'm going to slide my hands down to basically right where the 4X is gone, and I start running my hand into that thicker 3X section. And off that 3X section, I'm going to add a little micro loop off of that. Now this is going to be a substitute for a tippet ring. And what a nice thing about a tippet ring, or in this case a perfection loop, is that anytime I'm adding tippet directly back to the leader, I am attaching it directly onto the loop. I'm not cutting back on this line. So this makes for an excellent system where this allows me to add longevity and use this leader for a much longer period of time before I have to discard it. So now I have this 12-foot leader tapered down to about 3X with a little perfection loop at the end. So this is going to be my base. So if I'm fishing dry flies, nips, this is going to be pretty much what I'm going to be using as my base. If I'm fishing dry flies, I'm just going to add a very long section of nylon, 5X, 6X, depending on the buoyancy and the wind resistance of the dry fly is going to determine how long the tippet is. If I'm nymphing, I'm just going to run a long level section of fluorocarbon tippet, sometimes 5 to 6X, put my nymph on the very end, and then put my indicator somewhere on the tippet length. Now, eventually, if I want a Euro nymph and I just want to get rid of all this thickness and just go to basically an all mono system, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut whatever rig. If I have a dry fly rig or an indicator rig on that micro loop, I'm just going to cut that off and wind it around some sort of spool or carrying device. And then on this cartridge, I have basically 40 feet of nylon to a sighter, and then to my tippet, and then to my nips. And I'm just going to take the tip of this nylon, use a clinch knot, and attach my mono rig now to this loop. Once those are attached, I'm just simply going to reel the entire 14 or 12-foot 3X leader completely in the reel, so I have nothing but monofilament outside the rod tip. So this allows me to mono fish with a Euro rig. So basically with this approach, this allows me to cover a lot of bases. The 4-weight gives me the flexibility of pretty much doing a lot of things trout-wise, but then also having this leader as my base and that micro ring at the end, it allows me to transition back and forth from a mono rig to a dry fly rig to even an indicator rig. So this is what I use when I am just trying to reduce the amount of tools and gizmos and gadgets I carry with me streamside. And obviously there are times where I want to be a little bit more specialized and have a tool exact for the job. But usually for like 80 to 90% of my trout needs, this right here, what you see, I can do everything with. So this is just how I think about streamlining my approach, keeping things very simple. I hope this kind of gives you some ideas about how you can kind of build a system that works best for you in the waters that you fish. So thank you and have a great day.